Earthlings, welcome to another Still Alive with me and thee. So how you doing, Ronnie?
I'm all right. Yeah. Kind of busy as always, and doing different bits and pieces, and keeping going and still alive.
Have you been door knocking? Have you?
Have I done any door dropping? I haven't just recently because the weather's been so bad. We've had a lot of rain here. It's been very, very wet. So I've unfortunately not been able to, but I do intend to as soon as I can. Door dropping, you mean? I don't really knock on the doors.
No, knocking, dropping. Yeah, that's right. Yeah. So you had snow over there. Did you have snow?
Oh, well, we had a little bit of snow here. I got up the other morning and it was raining, and there were the remnants of snow. The rain was kind of washing it away, so we had a little bit. I think further north in the country they've had quite a lot of snow.
Yeah, I think there's been quite a bit throughout Ireland. Anyway, so we're still alive, as you can see. So welcome to the show. Groovy. So just to remind people, for the best interactive chat, you're better off on my YouTube channel. If you do post a comment on Facebook, we will see it, but you won't be able to see the general chat. So if you want to interact with everyone else who's saying things, you need to be on my YouTube channel. And in terms of posting, we don't charge anyone to have their views and questions and stuff put on screen. So we don't believe in that, do we, Ronnie? So,
no, we don't. No, everyone's equal. Everyone's free to post a comment, and we try to cover. It's obviously difficult to cover all of them, but we do our best to bring the kind of interesting ones up and discuss them, don't we?
We're not quite equal. I've got an end stream button that you don't have.
Yeah, Roger's kind of a higher in the hierarchy of Still Alive than me. He's got the power to liquidate me from the show if he wants.
Yeah, could. So hello. So there's Vegan Pundit. Hello there. Julian, excited. This is a thing I think is very important.
That's interesting, and this is something we can discuss.
Then what else have we got? Julian again. Hey, Deb. Deb has arrived. Vegan Paul is here. Jennifer's here, and Joanna too. HVB. I wonder what that stands for. HVB. That's if you got a license to drive lorries, isn't it? HVB. No, it's not.
Yeah, is it? Wait a minute. Is it? No, I was thinking HIV, isn't it? That's something else, isn't it? Oh, HGV. Heavy goods vehicle.
That's even worse than my terrible joke. That right?
Yeah, it's heavy goods for HGV. One of the V's probably stands for vegan. Hopefully.
I would think so, yes.
Yeah.
So, there we go. Right, so we've got this is our news show, really, where we just pinch everybody else's stuff and talk about it, really, isn't it? So
basically, yeah.
So we've got 3 items. The big one probably is the first. So should I bring that out without further ado, Ronnie?
Yeah, bring up the this is a post on Facebook.
This is the Facebook post. Yeah, I did have a look at their website. Their website is actually difficult to navigate, I think.
Yeah, this is a new campaign by Animal Rising. A couple of days ago, I couldn't find it on their website. It might be on there now. But basically, they sent out an email to people about it. I mean, I get their email.
It wasn't on their website this morning, Ronnie.
It wasn't, no. But they put it on their Facebook page, and they've sent emails out to kind of on their mailing list about it. And
now what you said, Ronnie, you said in the blurb that this campaign has caused a big controversy within the movement. So tell me why.
Well, you see, I was thinking if, Animal Rising, people in Animal Rising sitting down to think about, what's going to be our next campaign. And kind of, it makes me wonder whether they thought, well, what campaign can we do that will most piss off the animal rights movement? And then let's decide what that is and let's do it. I mean, it's a little bit similar, it's a little bit similar to people organising the vegan camp out a couple of years ago, thinking, what is the place where we can hold the camp out that will most piss off a load of people in the animal rights movement, and then saying, right, okay, let's do it at a shooting estate.
I think the parallels there are a bit.
Well, it's just. I think the parallel is people not taking into account, not gauging the feelings of the animal, what the reaction of the animal rights movement is going to be to what they what they decide to do. I think that's where the parallel is.
But I mean, Animal Rising, their rationale for this campaign or project, as they call it, is probably going to be quite nuanced and detailed, right?
Yeah. Well, first of all, I think it's important to, say what this new campaign is, and in case people don't know, and basically it's on the Facebook post it says, our latest project, vegans support the farmers, extends the hand of friendship to the farming community in the true spirit of non-violence. And in this point, I mean, they talk about rates of suicide in the farming industry during 3 times national level. And they say, our experience has taught us that when vegans and farmers connect on an individual level, we can find common ground and have constructive conversations. And then they want to raise money for young farmer mental health initiatives. And they're calling for a fair price for farmers, grow more food, imports down, and listen to farmers, not corporations. Now, of course, what has happened with this, that, like, there are a lot of people within the animal rights movement really annoyed with that, because they're saying, why are you supporting the enemy? These farmers, they're the oppressors of other animals, certainly the animal farmers, and they have said they intend to help animal farmers just as much as arable farmers. They're not going to make any distinction. And so there's a lot of folks in the animal rights movement saying, why are you helping the people that oppress other animals, that send them to slaughter? Basically, why are you assisting the enemy? And there's been really quite an uproar, because that's what a lot of people think.
Well, the thing is, presumably at the end of this campaign, if it works, they won't be the enemy. I mean, the first line is, we've always made it clear that a transition to a plant-based food system means a just and sustainable transition for farmers. Well, that line is true, isn't it?
Well, I mean, yeah. Obviously, if there's going to be like a transition to, obviously, if we're going to grow plants and not do animal farming, then there's a lot of people are going to have to change their jobs. I mean, not just farmers, people that run slaughterhouse workers, all of them, they're all going to have to do something else for a living, aren't they? You see, so I can understand.
That would be a knock on, wouldn't it?
Yeah, that would be. So yeah, I've got no problem with there being initiatives to help to retrain those people, to help them find, to help them make a living in a different way. I mean, of course,
isn't that what this is, Ronnie? No.
Well, I think this is, but you see, I think the question is this the job? Is this the job of vegans? Is this what vegans should be? You see, what people have said is, okay, so, farmers, it's true that, farmers suffer a lot of mental health problems. I mean, it's kind of not an easy job. They're up at like 4 a.m, they go to bed about 3 a.m, don't they? Stuff like a lot of them, and it's, I can see that it's like, it's hard work.
I don't know. You see, I think it might be quite interesting, first of all, to point out and kind of recognize, really acknowledge that all farmers are not the same. So, I mean, obviously you've got the animal farmers, you've got the mixed farms, you've got the arable farmers. And so we like plant-based farmers, don't we?
Well, I wouldn't say that I kind of like plant-based farmers. I'd say that obviously I prefer that farmers, farmed in a plant. I mean, a lot of plant-based farming is kind of still does a lot of harm to the natural world and other animals.
Okay.
But not as much.
As usual,
not nearly as much
Deb,
as.
you see this. Deb has got to the kind of crux of the matter very, very well, I think. Are they advocating fair prices for farmers, etc.? Still selling animal fresh dairy.
I think this is another thing to come on to in the discussion, really. As we kind of go down,
Okay, we'll come back. When we come back to that, then,
now, all right. So farmers suffer from mental health problems, but isn't that the job of the National Health Service to deal with? Why would vegans be dealing with that? We've got a National Health Service that's got like people that are specialists in mental health, and so isn't it the job of the National Health Service to help these farmers with mental health problems? Why is it the job of like vegans? And I don't see how these vegans are in any way kind of qualified in mental health counselling or kind of whatever. It's the job of the National Health Service. Why are vegans being encouraged to do this? And that's something that some of the critics in the animal rights movement have said about this. Why you encourage vegans to? That's not a job. Surely the job of vegans is to spread veganism.
Well, I suppose you could start talking about. You could talk about the way that the Tories have dealt with the NHS,
I mean, and the National Health Service is by no means perfect, and it's been decimated not just by the Tories, but by previous Labour governments as well. It's been privatised and cut, and it's much worse than it used to be. That's true, but nevertheless, that's the body whose job it is, and so. If you're going to campaign for improvements in the National Health Service that will benefit everyone. That benefits everyone, not just farmers, but like that's what we want. We want campaign for a better National Health Service rather than as vegans offering to somehow help farmers with their mental health problems when you're kind of not really qualified to do that.
Yeah. Okay. So. There's a few issues here that need to be disentangled, I think. For example, when you say that's not the job of vegans, well, it's kind of Animal Rising that's taken on this project.
Yeah, you see,
their slogan is "Vegan support the farmers."
What's really interesting about that is like in normal circumstances, they've got an aversion to the word vegan. It's like when they've done their campaigns, their kind of various direct action campaigns, like they had a blockade of the dairy industry, they had an occupation of a dairy farm and things like that. They absolutely lay it on the line. We do not want anyone to wear anything that says vegan, right? If anyone, when they're interviewed, says anything like, well, the way ordinary people can do something about this, but this what's happening to the animals is to go vegan. If anyone says that, that's cut out of the interview. They do not allow the promotion of veganism. They do not allow anything that encourages ordinary people to become vegan, right? But like as soon as you want to help the farmers, you can have vegan on your t-shirt. So it's kind of all it's arse about face, isn't it? In that sense.
Well, okay. So I mean that is an interesting point to me because, like you say. They're kind of flashing the vegan word quite prominently here.
Yeah, they're using vegan when it's to help farmers, but don't use vegan in the sense that we want to encourage ordinary people to become vegan.
But it is. Don't you think it's a statement of fact? Vegan support the farmers.
Well, yeah, they've set up an organisation. Vegan support the farmers, and okay, in one way, it's up to them what they do. But that doesn't mean that we can't have an overview of like the pros and cons of it, because we do with other groups. I mean, we've expressed our concern where you've got groups doing welfarist campaigns. I mean, there was a group we discussed fairly recently that had the campaign against that company, the chicken catchers, that they undercover investigation, and how the catchers were treating the chickens, and that other particular organization launched a campaign to persuade RSPCA approved to drop that particular firm, and we spoke about that, and we're concerned about that because it was a welfarist campaign, and one of our concerns about it was that it was diverting the resources of the movement. The resources of the movement that could have been put into vegan education were being put into a welfarist campaign, and so I think we can kind of take this overview of how the resources of the movement of the whole are being used, and I think this here is a case in point.
Okay. Did anybody go to the meeting that they've been advertising in relation to this?
I don't know. I mean, I wasn't. I didn't, and I wouldn't have been able to anyway because of something else I was doing. But it would have been. I've got some experience their meetings, and the meetings are really. They've already made this decision. Animal rights is a hierarchical organisation. It's run by a small group of individuals who lay down the policy.
So is Animal Aid and Viva.
Yeah, they're all the same. Yeah. So having this meeting, wouldn't have affected the like they let people have their say, and then they don't, and then they kind of go right, like you've had your say, but then they just carry on with what they want to do anyway.
Yeah, well, that leads into a question because there's lots of stuff that's coming up in the chat, so I'm going to go through that and get you to respond to it one by one. But first of all, my question here is I'm not quite sure why Animal Rising gets a load of get piled on by vegan activists when other groups don't.
Well, the reason I think there's kind of two reasons. Okay. I mean, I think it's for I think that they.
I've got my own theory about this, but go on.
Yeah. In terms of in terms of, I think there's a lot of people in the animal rights movement concerned that Animal Rising don't promote veganism. They're actually dead set against promoting veganism and encouraging ordinary people to go vegan. I think a lot of people are concerned about that, and that's a major concern of mine.
Okay. Well, I wish they were there. Wish they were there when Viva and Animal Aid didn't bloody promote veganism.
Well, the thing is, Viva and Animal Aid, and even the Animal Justice Project, and people we're concerned about because there's a welfarist element to their campaign, and indeed there is with Viva and Animal Aid. They do promote veganism as well. It's a kind of like a sort of mishmash, really, isn't it? But veganism and the promotion of veganism is in there, right? And so they do. And although we might criticize them for welfarist campaigns that make up part of their overall, what they do promote veganism.
I know what you're saying, Ronnie, but that kind of focus on veganism from groups like Viva and Animal Aid, that's relatively new historically.
It's relatively new, but at least they're doing it. At least they're doing it now. Yeah. And Animal Justice Project are doing it more than they were at one time as well, even though they do have these other campaigns that could be described as welfarist and kind of.
Why is everybody picking on this group?
Well, it's not that we're picking on this group. It's just that there's been a furor, an uproar, in the animal rights movement because of this campaign, and that's why we're covering this, because it's the kind of latest news, at least here in the UK. And I think the difference with this is what happens, I think, with people. I think people in the animal rights movement tend to generally that if something's for the animals, they think great, that's for the animals, and they're probably not kind of they probably don't distinguish enough between things. In other words, if something's for the animals, even if it's a welfarist campaign, a lot of people will think that's still great. They won't see the kind of the problems with that. But the thing is, they don't see this as being for the animals. They see this as being for the farmers. They see this as being for the oppressors of other animals. And that's the difference. That's the difference between this campaign and welfarist campaigns that have been launched by other organizations.
Okay, well, I think that point brings up what Julian has said originally. Animal farmers obviously need social and financial help switching to a plant-based food system. So as long as that is what is up, I am supportive. So in other words, it's not handing money hand over fist to people who are still going to be trotting down the slaughterhouse, is it? It's supposed to be part and parcel of transitioning them away from animal agriculture, right?
I mean, I would think this must be the. I mean, Animal Rising hasn't said this. They haven't. They kind of haven't. It might be one of these things we're hoping people will guess what they mean. Like,
no, but they say they want a plant-based food system, right?
Yeah, but well, you see, basically that, you know, if they were to have said, we're hoping that, you know, extending the hand of friendship to these farmers and to animal farmers will encourage them to switch to growing plants instead of farming animals. If they kind of made that clear, I think that there may have been a little bit more sympathy for them, but they haven't made that clear.
Yeah. Right? Okay. That also.
Yeah. I mean, the other big point that I think is important to make is that that kind of helping animal farmers to switch to growing plants instead isn't necessarily going to make any difference in terms of the number of animals that are slaughtered, the number of animals that are farmed, and the number of animals that are slaughtered. Because if the demand for the consumption of animal products remains the same, I'm really nice to an animal farmer and I persuade, encourage, help an animal farmer to, you know, to grow crops instead, or maybe not even to grow crops, but to allow their land to go back to woodland. And that would happen a lot. Like all the land that's currently used for animal farming wouldn't be used to grow crops. We wouldn't need it. We'd only need a fraction of it. The majority of it would need to be rewilded, would need to be allowed to go back to woodland or help to go back to woodland, because that's what we need in terms of the climate crisis and the biodiversity crisis and all that. But anyway, if I were to help an animal farmer to grow plants instead, that of itself isn't going to make any difference to the number of animals slaughtered, because what will happen if the demand for animal products remains the same, those animals would just be supplied from another farm, won't they? Another farm will just, you know, breed and supply extra animals.
You're taking a very individualistic view.
Yes, but you see, but it kind of is that all these farmers are individuals, and all these farmers are, you know.
Yeah, but I'm sure Animal Rising will say that and I think this is one of the problems, the use of the word friendship. And I think we talked about that in a different show about Animal Rising, because I think that kind of gets in the craw of many vegans. But I think what they would argue is, well, look, if we can get people, as it were, on the inside pushing for change as well as us from the outside, all very well. And so therefore, by being seen to be supportive and understanding of the predicament of farmers, then that's going to bring about that kind of situation.
Well, I'm all for people. I'm all for people on you know, I'm all for farmers, obviously, you know, coming on our side. And, you know, even you know, there are some animal farmers that have ended the animal farming and ended up promoting veganism.
And isn't that what this campaign is?
Well,
really
yes.
Focused on?
The problem is that they haven't made that clear. You see, this is the thing, that it's been pitched as helping the farmers, when really what it should have been pitched to the movement as is about helping the animals, helping the other animals. In other words, they say that we want like, you know, we want a plant-based future. We want these animal farmers to stop animal farming and to either switch to growing plants or to allow their lands to
and they
be
don't say that.
rewilded. Right?
You're saying they don't say that.
I'm saying no. That what it's all about. It's all about helping the farmers. Whereas if they've made it clear, it's kind of helping the other animals through helping the farmers. If it'd been pitched in a different way, they're saying that, like, you know, we understand this about farmers. We think that if we can offer the hand of friendship to these farmers and talk to them about things, then, you know, our kind of hope is that that a lot of these farmers will understand about the importance of moving to growing plant crops instead, and that also that maybe some of them would become vegan advocates. And in fact, you know, a very good form of advocate. If someone's been an animal farmer and they turn into a vegan advocate, they are a very powerful advocate for veganism, aren't they? If Animal Rising had pitched it like that, in a way that the animal rights movement could have, like, understood.
I'm inclined to agree with you on that point.
Yes, right? They should have led with the animals, because the difficulty is that, you know, people in general aren't very good at sort of nuances. They read a thing really quickly. They look at the main gist of a thing and then they kind of react to that, right? And so that needs to be up front, that we're doing this for the animals. We're doing this, you know, to end animal farming, and this is our thought process. You know, if we help these farmers, then, you know, maybe that well, maybe
I think you might be right. They haven't thought through.
They haven't pitched
campaign launched, right? So
they haven't pitched it in a way.
Project. I think project.
They haven't pitched it in a way that's you know, that's likely to bring the movement on.
It's not vegan movement friendly.
No, it's not. No. And
I get that. Yeah, I get that.
And I think once again, you see, one of my major problems with Animal Rising has always been their messaging. I think they've carried out some, like, really good actions, some really good non-violent direct action that's got a lot of publicity and has been very good for raising awareness. But then they're let down by their messaging, the messaging that accompanies it. You know, they talked about a nation of animal lovers, you know, when obviously, you know, this nation isn't a nation of animal lovers. And why are you talking about animal lovers anyway? It's about respect, isn't it? And, you know, and then there's that, and then their failure to incorporate a message encouraging ordinary people to go vegan, when like there's an ideal opportunity. They've got media coverage. Why not have a message in there that's going to be
okay?
So the messaging's a problem, and I think once again with this, it's you know, in a big way. This could they could have put this across in a different way that would have been much more acceptable to the movement. You lead with it benefiting the farmed animals. That's how you lead.
I suppose the short answer to that, Ronnie, is it's their campaign, so they can say
it's their campaign. But that doesn't mean that we can't comment on it. I mean, we've commented on
the campaign.
Yeah. So, you know,
I mean, I'm understanding your position, because I think that, like you say, this is probably this project. Let's call it a project.
Yeah.
You know, amongst their general campaign, which is multifaceted. Let's say that their campaign actually incorporates lots of projects. This is one of them. Now, this one, which has got a big focus on the farmers, is the first one to really kind of go for the word vegan, and that's what's kind of got you a bit narky about.
They've gone for the word vegan, but they haven't gone for the word vegan in terms of educating ordinary people to go vegan. And basically, you know, if we truly want like a plant-based future, in other words, if we truly want agriculture to move to the growing of plants instead of farming animals, we've got to educate loads of people to go vegan. Because if the vast majority of people, or at least educate people to want to stop eating animal products, because if the vast majority of people still want to eat animal products, they're going to be highly resistant to any government that tries to move the country to plant-based. Don't they go, "Hey, what are you doing? I want my meat." Aren't they? If you're ever going to realistically, you know, have action at you know, the level of the administration, the level of the government to move. You
well,
know,
I'm not going to argue with on that point, because
no,
obviously,
so you've got to so vegan vegan education is absolutely fundamental if we're to a plant-based future. Absolutely fundamental, because you never get it unless we educate a substantial number of people to actually become vegan or to want to no longer consume.
Let's go back to this campaign. So we had Julian making that point that we've seen, and then Deb said the concern is that we're propping up a system currently in place, you know, kind of like, so it's supporting the status quo without doing anything to replace it. I think Animal Rising would say that's not the case, wouldn't they?
Well, I think, I mean, Animal Rising, what they want to replace, and it's not just Animal Rising. I mean, the Vegan Society have got a Grow Green, I think, campaign where, and they produced, you know, documents for the government and everything, and that's all about transitioning to, you know, to kind of transitioning away from animal farming. It's not just Animal Rising that's doing this, and you know, and overall, I've nothing against that kind of initiative. I think it's really good, but we're never going to get very far with any of that unless we educate a substantial number of people to no longer want to consume.
Oh, yeah, I understand that. I mean, that's your generic point, which I understand. As a sociologist, I understand that culturally. Let's try and tie it in with, you know, the bit where it said 1, 2, 3. Now, surely everybody, especially when it's got the title "Vegan Support the Farmers," will be calling for fair price for farmers. Now, it doesn't mean fair price for sausages, does it?
No. And you see, I can kind of see how maybe the fair price for farmers would be a good thing in terms of, well, it sort of depends how it depends how it works. You see, the problem, one of the difficulties that kind of gets in the way of educating people to come vegan, or at least educating people to stop consuming animal products, is the fact that the price of animal products is artificially low because of subsidies, right? And so basically, there are a lot of grants given to farmers for various things, and the effect of a lot of this is to mean that the actual price that consumers pay for animal products is much less than the real cost of those products. You see, so and the same support isn't given for the kind of non-animal alternatives to those things, so that it's more difficult to persuade people to switch to the non-animal products. It makes it kind of harder to kind of encourage people to do that. I think once somebody has done that, that then does have an effect, because then you've got the demand affecting supply. But it does make it harder, because
so
these products
we're coming back to the fundamental issue that you often raise when it comes to this group, which is fair enough. In relation, Deb answered Julian, right, and then Julian said, "Oh, I see, right, okay." That seemed like a relevant concern. In other words, what Deb said.
Yes.
Danny says, how much money do they want to raise for farmers' mental health? Well, again, is that a question that can be framed that way? Because it's not as though if Bernard Matthews turned up knocking on the door, they're going to dole out loads of money to him, or is it?
Well, I don't know how the money kind of comes into it, really, unless you're going to play.
The first thing the farmers are going to have to do is buy into the project of Animal Rising, which is to move towards a plant-based system.
Well, it depends. I'm not sure whether that is the case, and it doesn't really say here that that's the case. But you see, money for mental health. Kind of, what does that mean? Unless they're going to raise money to pay private mental health therapists to help the farmers. Is that what they're going to do? Is this where that money's going to go? How would money help someone with mental health? unless you're going to do that.
Well, yeah, well, to get some treatment that they need, presumably.
The treatment that they need, yeah. But you see, so yeah, I mean, maybe that's going to happen. But I mean,
I can answer this one. Why aren't Animal Rising in this? Well, it's because this is our news program, and so we're just reacting to things that are in the animal rights news. Yeah, so
and you know, we talk about lots of things, and if we were to invite everyone on the show that we talk about, there'd be like loads and loads of other people on the show. I mean, we're just discussing the news, and this is like
somebody agrees 1,000% with you here, Ronnie.
Well, that's brilliant. That's the first time anyone's agreed 1,000% with me. That's great.
Yes. So so this is reminiscent then of the kind of comments. As we said, there's about 600 comments on Facebook, and a lot of people are assuming that it just means that Animal Rising are just going to hand over money to farmers who are just staying as they are. I'm not quite sure.
Yes, you see, well, because I think, I think that could well happen. That could well happen. That because I don't think Animal Rights are going to say to the farmers, "Look, we've got this money here, but we're not going to give it to you."
The farmer turns up and says, "Fuck your plant-based system. Give us some money." They're not going to give it, are they?
Well, yes, but they haven't. Yeah, but you see, you know, what are their kind of rules and regulations as to whether a farmer gets the money? If a suicidal farmer turns up at their office or whatever, are they just going to say, right, okay, we're going to pay some therapist to see you, to talk to you, without stipulating, but only if you promise to move to a plant-based system? Are they going to say that? I don't think so.
Okay. Well, Danny said what I kind of said here.
Yeah. I think this is, and I think this is like. Because what they kind of do is, you see, what they tend to do is call on vegans to do things. You see, when they did the
are they calling on vegans to do anything now on this one?
Well, it's vegans. Vegans support the farmers.
No, that's a slogan, Ronnie.
It's not saying like we support, but but I can understand that some vegans saying, well,
they're not going to expect
vegans. Yeah, but
you and Louise to rush down a local farm and start doing massages, are they?
You see, the thing is, you see the slogan "vegans support the farmers." You know, a lot of people say, "Well, I'm vegan and I don't support the farmers." What are you going on about? I can understand people thinking that, and I think this is one of the cause of the why people have reared up over this.
Isn't the truth of the matter is that it needs a bit more nuance, as you were saying. Vegans are bound to support farmers moving towards a veganic system.
Yes, you see, well if the underlying reason for this whole thing is that we want farmers to move out of animal agriculture and stop animal farming, right?
Yeah, they do.
It's just the thinking behind that.
Yeah,
they haven't said that.
Of course, they have. They said they want a plant-based food system, Ronnie.
Yeah, but had they led with that? But you see, they're not kind of explaining the process of it. They're like,
it's in the first line, Ronnie. It's in the first line.
Well, it says, I'm having a look now because I haven't got that on my screen. See what the first.
Well, it's on the big screen. So we've always been clear that our transition to a plant-based food system means a just and sustainable transition for farmers, because it's the farmers that are going to do this new system.
Well, yeah, but the thing is, even so, I don't think that makes it clear enough that what they're doing is fundamentally for the other animals. You see, this is the thing. I don't think that. Who's
going to benefit from a plant-based food system, Ronnie?
Well, the other animals are going to benefit from plant-based food system, but you see, but the problem is the problem is that I don't think people connect those two things. They're saying that's always been like one of their pillars of what Animal Rising have stood for. Yes, but they haven't sort of explained how. They've said, that's what we want, but then they haven't explained how supporting the farmers in this way can lead to that.
Okay. Well, look, I thought that our complaint about them is that they're missing out the vegan education part.
Yeah, the main problem with animal rising is that they don't encourage people to become vegan. Because
but see, the thing is that this particular project of their campaign is based on the producers, not the consumers.
But and like everything they do is based on it's a campaign that attacks supply rather than demand.
Yeah, well, you got producers, you've got control, regulators, and you've got.
But these are all part of the supply chain. The farmers are part of the supply. The fundamental reason why someone's an animal farmer is because people consume animal products.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, I know.
Yeah. You see, and so for as long as
that's not going to be a big shock to animal rising, is it?
No. But you see, what I'm saying is that you've got you've got a campaign here that people perceive as like encouraging vegans to support people who are the oppressors of other animals. That's how a lot of people in the animal rights movement are perceiving this. And animal rights haven't done anything to kind of and first of all, were they not aware that would be the reaction? And secondly,
well, I think you might have a point there. It's just that it's also a bit obvious, isn't it, Ronnie?
Well, but no, they haven't said. They kind of haven't sort of, if they're going to support what it should have explained is how supporting the farmers in this way will ultimately, help the other animals, and they haven't.
Because they're going to be the future producers of the planet.
They haven't made that, and they should have made it because they should have known, were they not aware that putting it like this would cause them a load of aggro, and they could have put it a different way that wouldn't have caused them that aggro from the movement? It's like not understanding how
because vegans are not sophisticated enough to understand.
Well, no, it's not that vegans are. It's not that vegans aren't sophisticated enough to understand. It's just that you need to. You can't. I think you kind of need to explain things properly, and they haven't explained the connection between those things. They haven't explained the connection between how supporting farmers in this way will help the other animals. They've not made that clear enough, and this should have been pitched. If they pitched this a different way, then they wouldn't have got the amount of aggro.
Let's think about Harold Brown and Farm Kind. Now, when you hear about what he's doing, which is helping them transform from one to the other, you understand implicitly how that helps other animals, don't you?
Yes, but you see, but you see, he's someone that does promote veganism.
Well, I've already conceded that point to you, and I agree with you.
And so, but if this had been like, we see that by helping the farmers in this way, that this is a way by which we can encourage and persuade them to no longer to understand what veganism is all about, and to no longer be involved in farming other animals, and indeed to become advocates for veganism, as other farmers have done. And they could have mentioned the other farmers that have done this, and had they done it that way, then they wouldn't have got the flack, because how they've done it, a lot of people just see this just immediately. Vegans support the farmers. What? Vegans are supporting people that oppress other animals? But there's something interesting, and so what I kind of wanted to say about this is and it kind of is to do with the sort of attitude of people towards farmers, and indeed the attitude of people towards slaughterhouse workers and all these people as well, that we need to consider. And that is, if I was to pay you to kill someone, right, and you killed someone because I paid you, who's the most guilty out of you and me? Right? All right, you're the one that's killed someone, but you wouldn't have done it if I hadn't paid you.
Well, culpability is shared there.
You see, so there is an argument that the person who pays the killer is actually more to blame, because the killer wouldn't have done the killing unless the person had paid them, right? So you know, there's this kind of hatred
is this relevant, Ronnie?
No, well, it kind of it kind of is, because it goes to this this thing about, and the reason why a lot of people in the animal rights movement are angry about this is because these farmers are the oppressors of other animals, and like, well, they're hate figures. You know, the slaughterhouse workers are kind of hate figures, aren't they? They're the ones that do the thing. Whereas, like, kind of, you know, who's, you know, why isn't someone that, you know, is sat there like eating a piece of meat as much as much of a hate figure as the farmer and the slaughterhouse worker, when they're the person that's paid those people to do what they're doing? And that's an interesting point.
So we've got Kerry from the actual campaign in the chat. So
yeah, but you see, yeah, I mean, what I'd say is, my main question is, why don't you encourage ordinary people to become vegan? Because by transitioning an animal farmer, like I've explained, by transitioning an animal farmer to a plant-based system, kind of makes no difference, because somebody else will supply the demand, isn't it? I mean, it's the same we've talked about, you know, if someone closes down like a place that supplies animals to laboratories, unless you somehow reduce the number of animal experiments, make no difference, because those animals would be supplied from somewhere else. And it's the same thing. You have to tackle the demand. And my problem with animal rights is they don't tackle demand. When they've got a golden opportunity, the publicity, the media attention they receive, to persuade people to go vegan, or at least persuade people to give up consuming animal products.
Well, look, as far as I am aware, in fact, I was told this today, that Kerry's PhD is about this, right? And they mentioned their PhD here.
Yeah. But you see, the thing is,
it's transitioning animal farmers. Look at the line.
Yeah. I'm not against transitioning animal farmers.
But that's integral to this campaign, Ronnie.
Yes, I'm not against that. You know, I'd love all animal farmers to transition to growing crops and, you know, letting their land go to woodlands. I'm massively in favour of that. I mean, Vegan Organic Network already, you know, help farmers to do that. You know, there are organisations already that help that, and it's good work. But the bottom line is, you know, unless we educate, for as long as people want to consume animal products, you know, we're not going to get very, very, very far with this. We've got to tackle demand, and I want to see animal rising. Well, I want to see all vegans tackle demand, because that's, you know, that's really fundamental if we want and you know, change the way.
Well, there's your answer from the horse's mouth, so to speak.
Yeah, but you see, but the problem is that, you see, why not? In terms of the other campaigns, I don't disagree. Like I've said, don't disagree with encouraging, helping and encouraging farmers to move to plant-based system. Yeah, no, I don't. I'm all in favour of that. But Animal Rising, on many occasions, have had a golden opportunity to encourage ordinary people to go vegan, right?
Yeah, but they're explaining that here. Viva and Animal Aid do that.
No. But you see, yeah, but the thing is, if you do an action that is aimed at and does succeed in achieving a load of media coverage, isn't it a big?
Yeah, well, again, I'm liable to agree with you there.
Yeah,
now, how democratic are we? Because we could jettison our other news items. Do you want to carry on the show, Ronnie?
Well, I think we could have another show where we discuss this. I mean, as I've said, we probably need to move to the next news item, because it's somehow related, isn't it? The next news item to this.
Okay, so all right.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm just going to go through what Kerry's saying, just for fairness. Transition is a very complex issue. I would agree with that, and is nigh on impossible for farmers to just change like that. I would agree with that. I think one interesting part about it is that one thing that's not been mentioned either in the blurb that we've seen, I think, and what we've said today is subsidies, because that's the key to it.
Well, subsidies. I mean, I've done a bit of looking into subsidies just recently, and often this idea of subsidies is used to say, oh, well, educating people to go vegan actually makes no difference because of the subsidies. But the subsidies don't really work like that. What the subsidies do is make it harder to educate people to go vegan. And as I've said, that because you've got the price on animal products is artificially low, and subsidies aren't given to the non-animal alternatives. You see, so from a financial point of view, it makes it difficult to educate people to move to a plant diet, right? But once someone, if you do succeed in moving that person to a plant diet, then that does have an impact. Then the demand affects supply does come in. It just makes our job as educators harder. But that doesn't mean that the education doesn't work. You see, that's
okay. So going back to what Kerry said here, which is that, well, Viva can do that bit. You're saying, well, if you do that bit, you could incorporate it into your news.
What I'm saying is if you get it's so important that what people need to understand is while the vast majority of people want to consume animal products, right, then it's going to be really, really difficult to kind of make the transition in terms of farming, because most people won't want that. And secondly, the thing about the government, we want the government to do this, we want the government to do that. We have a government in power that's ideologically totally opposed to doing anything like that, right? So you're banging your head against a brick wall. We want the government to kind of do stuff to transition the country to plant-based. But they're totally ideologically opposed to that.
Yeah, well, you might be banging your head trying to talk to people who vote for people like that as well.
So the only way, why have we got the government we've got, right? The reason we've got the government we've got is because people voted for them. They weren't imposed from the sky. They were voted for. About 29% of the people eligible to voted this government into power. So. Because
it's ironic about the sky bit, given Rupert Murdoch, but I'll let that go.
Yeah. So basically, you've got to change the way ordinary people think, because it's ordinary people are the voters. Unless we change the way a substantial number of ordinary people think, we're going to continue to get governments that are fundamentally speciesist and will be highly resistant to ending animal agriculture. So that's another reason for changing all the ordinary people, and another reason for promoting veganism.
Okay, we've look, we're being challenged here. So what do you want to do, Ronnie? You rambled, speculated, and chucked out questions. Well, I think I've.
But we don't. Yeah, I think Sam needs to understand how this works. We don't have people. We talk about things. We don't have people, and we haven't rambled and speculated. I think we've made some interesting and important points. And the format of the show is just us. It always is that, otherwise we end up with like hundreds of people on the show, and that's not what it's all about.
Although we have had people, haven't we? I mean, we had Animal Rising before, didn't we?
Well, yeah, we had a special show where we had Animal Rising on. We have, but that wasn't this particular news show, was it?
No. Okay, so what do you want to do then, Ronnie?
Well, I think move to the next one, because this is somewhat related.
Okay. All right, so this is
this is to do with, and probably far more people throughout the world will know about this than about Animal Rising, because Animal Rising probably very much the UK. This is basically, I mean, probably most people, I suppose, in the animal rights movement know that Wayne Shawn was very recently sentenced to 90 days in prison for his involvement in an open rescue of animals, or perhaps several open rescues in connection with direct action everywhere. And this was on the west coast of the USA. Sonoma County, which is in California. And they've got a campaign against some farms there that, farm birds.
Yeah. Before you go on, Ronnie, just to try to clarify this, because otherwise I'll lose it. It's just that, Sam, what it is that there's several programs. So you might be thinking about My Time Tunnel, or you might be thinking about the Animal Rights Show, but this show itself doesn't normally have guests. This is, it's normally Ronnie and I talking about issues that, movement issues and that kind of stuff. And then we've started, like this one, to feature programs based on what's currently in what you might call the animal rights news.
Yeah, so and we try to do how people can take part in this show is through the comments, and we try to cover as many comments as we can. Although obviously it's probably not possible to cover all of them. That's how this kind of.
I thought I'd been doing rather well, but I've been called that I've chucked some out or something. But anyway,
I don't know. It's difficult when there's a lot of comments. You only do your best. But onto what happened with Wayne, he got 90 days in jail, followed by 24 months of probation. They've had this campaign against these farms in Sonoma County in California, and one's a duck farm, and two of them are chicken farms. Over 100 people have been arrested on felony charges for taking non-violent direct action to help suffering animals at factory farms in the county. I mean, this is from the Right to Rescue website, which kind of covers all this. So Wayne Sean is currently in prison, sentenced to 90 days. Which is obviously it's absolutely appalling. Somebody that goes into because quite often what they do is they take sick animals out of these farms so that the animals can get veterinary treatment. And if that didn't happen, those animals would just be left to die or killed by the farmer. So these people are doing a lot of good work, and it's disgraceful that Wayne has been sent to prison, and it might be some other people will be if they've that they're arresting more people. But you see, DXE sadly are kind of similar to Animal Rising in that they've got loads of publicity over all this. Obviously, Wayne going to prison and their actions attract a lot of publicity. They do actions that deliberately to get publicity, which is kind of okay of itself. But nowhere do they encourage ordinary people to go vegan. In none of it. There's nothing on their website about it. In fact, Wayne Sean has actually said and written that he's actually against people being encouraged to go vegan. So once again, you've got this waste of a golden opportunity with all this publicity through these actions, which are very praiseworthy in many ways, but it's just this huge wasted opportunity to spread veganism. Because why do these farms exist? Why are there these terrible farms that they go into and rescue animals? Why are those farms there? Those farms are there because people consume animal products, because there's a demand. There's a demand for the ducks for people to eat. There's a demand for the chickens for people to eat, or the eggs for people to eat. That's why those farms exist. And they're not doing something. They're not doing anything to tackle the fundamental reason why this goes on.
I'm just putting that in just in case people want to follow up on what you said. They
and this is the thing. There's nothing on the Right to Rescue website, as far as I can see. Nothing on the DXE Direct Action Everywhere website that promotes veganism and encourages people to go vegan or to stop consuming animal products. And that's the reason why, why are they having to do this? Why are they having to rescue these animals? It's because people eat animals and eat their products. That's the reason. You have to tackle demand. Otherwise, these things won't ever end. And change people's basic attitudes, because, if you've got, the legislatures in these various counties and states in the USA and, at national level, You know, why are they resistant to, you know, why are they sort of passing these ag-gag laws and all these things over there? Well, it's because speciesists, aren't they? You know, and kind of how do you change that? You only change that by changing the voters, so they'll vote in people that aren't like that. It's the only way you do it.
So you're back to vegan education, Ronnie.
Everything comes back to vegan education. Everything comes back to that as a major component. It's not the only thing that's important. There's lots of good stuff people do to help and protect other animals, and as I've said, a lot of the stuff that these people have done is like really good. But it's just that why is the most important component not included in their messaging?
Debbie's bringing up some interesting points about the trial. I mean, I don't know much about this. I've got to be honest, I tend to steer clear of DXE for various reasons.
Yeah, I mean, there's you know, obviously there's some, you know, controversy surrounding them, but I'm kind of I'm sort of you know, talking about it from a kind of more sort of step back position, that there's these people that's doing this direct action that's praiseworthy in many ways. And it's a parallel with Animal Rising. You know, these people are doing actions which are, you know, praiseworthy in a lot of ways. You know, Animal Rising have rescued animals from farms, and that's absolutely brilliant and stuff like that. But you've got all this publicity. Why not use it to promote veganism? Encourage other people to go vegan. What's, you know, why not? What's going on?
Well, I mean, so that's two groups that. Well, you see, the point is, they'll both say that it's research-based. You know, there's good reasons to do that.
But it's kind of like, you don't need research, do you? You don't need research to. How much research do you need to work out that 2 and 2 equals 4? Right? Like, it's obvious, isn't it? It's obvious that this goes on. That the reason these farms exist is because people consume animal products. If people didn't consume animal products, these places wouldn't exist. And the fewer people consume animal products, the fewer animals will be produced and reared and slaughtered to supply the demand. And then there's also the fundamental attitudes of people as voters. You know, if we want.
Well, what do you make of this then, Ronnie? But what do you do about this? Is a bit tautological. This,
you see, well,
about people who can't be convinced ethically. A lot of people are like that. They will only follow after the culture.
Well, yes, but you see, it's like, but how would you change the culture and how do you change the system? You see, now, accept that there are a lot of people that can't be changed, but you don't need to change everyone. I mean, I said earlier, the government in this country elected 29% of people eligible to vote, and they, you know, they rule with a large majority, right? So you don't need to persuade everyone. You need to, I'd say, you need to persuade a substantial majority, so that we're the ones that call the shots. That's it. And once you're in that position, then you can kind of change the culture and you can do stuff. You know, that's the thing. I'm not, my philosophy isn't based on believing that we can change everyone. I don't think we can. We need to change a substantial minority.
Yeah, I suppose in the end it's a bit of a numbers game, isn't it? I mean,
yeah.
I mean, the way I talk about this quite often is when people make this kind of point or related points, I tend to ask if they think that there are more ethical vegans out there to be found. And they always say, yes. I've never had somebody say, no, we've kind of drained, you know, the barrel dry. And so therefore, it seems to me, given the importance of it, there's nothing more important than going to get them.
No. And also, why are these people vegans themselves? If they don't think it makes any difference being a vegan, why are they vegan? Why do they not consume animal products? They think that the act of non-consumption of animal products has no effect. Why don't they consume animal products?
Yeah, hang on a minute. They're not saying that though, Ronnie. They're not saying it has no effect. They're just saying some people can't be persuaded ethically.
Oh no, yeah, some people can't be persuaded ethically, but they must think that. You see, the thing is, it's like vegan education is a win-win situation, right? Because obviously, you know, the kind of ideal situation would be that we educated enough people to go vegan so that, you know, we get sufficient cultural change and political change, because you've got to have the political change as well as the cultural change, and, you know, the two kind of go together. So that we're the ones that run the show. At the moment, the speciesists run the show and the human supremacists run the show, don't they? We need a situation where people that are opposed to those things won't run the show, right? And so therefore, there's a lot of people that kind of will of their own volition, right? Because they believe in it, no longer buy into the oppression and exploitation of other animals. And then you just stop the other ones because you're in a position to kind of end these things because you're the ones that are in charge. Then you've got the power to to stop the other ones.
Okay, right? Well,
that's the ideal situation. But even if you never reach that, here in the UK, if I educate, persuade, encourage somebody to go vegan, or let's say somebody to just adopt just to stop consuming animal products, that has the effect of sparing over 100 animals from suffering and slaughter, because you've ended the demand. Everyone here in the UK who consumes animal products.
That's where the subsidies argument comes in, isn't it?
Yeah, but the subsidies don't work in that way. The subsidies make it harder to persuade people to adopt a vegan diet, shall we say. They make it harder because subsidies artificially lower the prices of animal products, right? But if you do succeed in educating people, then that does have an effect. So it just means we've got to work harder. It just means it's harder to persuade people, but that doesn't mean that persuading people, educating people, has no effect. And then how are we going to ever do anything about those subsidies? Well, those subsidies are down to the government. You've got to have a government that thinks differently regarding other animals. And so how do you do that? You have to elect people to Parliament that have the right attitude, that are anti-speciesist, or at least they're opposed to animal agriculture. And kind of how do you do that? You've got to change the voters, because they're the ones that vote the people in. So once again, that comes back to educating people as individuals.
Okay, you've got a question directed at you here. I don't know whether you want to take it now. I'm not quite sure if I understand it really. The problem, Ronnie, you're expecting messaging from a grassroots group. I suppose that's Animal Rising there. I don't think that's, unless that's
no. I mean, Animal Rising is an organisation, and they've got people paid, and they're actually a company. No. I'm not. I'm wanting Animal Rising to put out a message that will actually be more effective in creating change.
I think what this might be saying, Ronnie, is that you're orientated towards Animal Rising as though it was a grassroots group, but really it's
no. I accept they're not. I accept they're not a grassroots group.
Okay,
but even if they're not a grassroots group, I would still like to see them put out a better message. I mean, the same with this, same with any of the national organisations that kind of aren't grassroots groups. I'd like to see their messaging better as well.
Yeah, well, I'm going to end this show by flashing up a couple of things that Kerry said, so I'll go back to them later. But this is a fundamental challenge to our position right now, Ronnie. Vegan education will not work. Get out of this mindset. The civil rights movement did not go around trying to convince everybody to stop being racist. They used direct action to change the system.
But like direct action, the problem is that direct action doesn't always work, and kind of mostly doesn't work. People are kind of pointing out, always talk about civil rights movement, but there's been lots of examples of direct action didn't work. CND, the Committee of 100, direct action movement against the UK having nuclear weapons, failed. We've still got nuclear weapons. Recently renewed nuclear capability. And recently, the direct action by the climate groups, just Stop Oil and Extinction Rebellion and those, what's that resulted in? Has that resulted in the government doing anything to do anything about the climate crisis? No, it's resulted in them bringing in more draconian legislation against protest. So this idea that this direct action always works because there was some progress made by like the civil rights movement, it's like, there's loads of examples of it kind of not working. And there's loads of examples of mass protests not working. I mean, there were like, what was it, 2 million people marched in London against the UK's involvement in the Iraq war. Yet Tony Blair still sent, the UK troops to support America in invading Iraq. So there's been loads of failures of these things. We need to take that into consideration.
Well, I think there might be a difference between what's being called direct action and protest that you're talking about.
Well, yeah, but you see, but a lot of direct action is kind of, but it's a type of protest, I suppose, and like protests in general. But there's been, so if you're just talking purely about direct action, and like, where are all these people that are going to take part in the direct action? That number of people that are going to kind of, what we got to be realistic about, like what vegans are going to do. Like we might be able to get like vegans doing something simple to spread. Like it's really, really, really simple to educate people to go vegan. You can just deliver leaflets. You can have an information stall. You're not doing anything that's going to get you arrested, end up in jail. I think that we can get there. You see, the people in civil rights movement were like, a lot of them were like fighting for themselves and their own, their own rights. That isn't the case with other animals. And we've got to be realistic about like what people in the movement are actually going to be prepared to do as well when we devise our strategy.
This is an interesting one in the sense.
I agree. I kind of agree with that. I agree with that because I think both, sadly, most people seem to want to just chew the cud, and so at the moment that works against us. Because they're not resistant to. I mean, we've got a government that's brought in the most horrendous draconian measures and repressive measures in all sorts of ways, and yet there's been very, very little resistance to it from ordinary people. And that's that's depressing. But it can work the other way. If we manage to get control, then they're not going to. They're not going to resist what we do any more than they're resisting what this government does.
This one is interesting. I think this probably points out the difference between, say, our position, although I don't want to speak for you, Ronnie, but and say Francione's position, because he wants vegan education only, whereas you're saying that vegan education should be incorporated into everything that gets done. Is that right?
Yeah. No, I'm not. I'm not opposed to other forms of action. I'm not opposed to farmers being helped to transition to growing crops or allowing woodland to grow instead of animal farming.
You'd be a bigger fan of animal rising if they had a strong vegan education element.
Yeah. But I think that unless we have a huge amount of my position, it's like, to me the word unless is really important, because it's unless all these great other things that people are doing to help animals. I mean, I support rescue, I support hunt sabs and all these things. I've supported, raised money for them, taken part in those things, and these things they're all good things, they're all positive. But the bottom line is, and unless there's lots more vegan education, and unless a lot more vegans becoming involved in vegan education, we're not going to get very far. Because how are we going to obtain animal liberation while the vast majority of people don't agree with it, don't even understand it? We're not. How's that going to happen? So if we're going to do that, then there has to be this huge educational effort.
Okay. Right. Do you want to move on, or
yeah? We'll quickly move on to the next one. This is a rather long article from Vox.
There's a couple of points that I want to come back to in a minute.
Yeah.
Okay. Can you see that, Ronnie?
Yeah, I can. And basically, this is an article about we're in. I think at the moment the COP28 conference on the climate is in progress, and this is a long article kind of about that. And it's basically
the COP out 28. It should be called
COP out 28 because it kind of is a cop out, really. I mean, it's really inadequate in terms of. I mean, a lot of people kind of focus on the burning of fossil fuels as the kind of main driver of the climate crisis. But in actual fact, I think it's considerable evidence that it's actually not the burning of fossil fuels. It's actually animal agriculture and also the fishing industry that are kind of that are mainly responsible for the climate crisis. Now, there's an organization called Climate Healers. If you go on their website, they produced a paper which explains why, in their view, animal agriculture is 87% responsible for global heating. And that's based on the fact that the kind of calculations that have been made to assess the contribution of animal agriculture aren't right, and in fact the emissions from animal agriculture are greater in terms of global heating than is what's normally accepted. That's one thing. It's secondly that historically animal agriculture has contributed hugely to global heating because of the clearing of land, because of the felling of forests to create land for grazing, and also for the growing of crops to feed farmed animals, because a huge amount of land is used to grow crops to feed to animals, which are then consumed by humans.
I thought it was the vegans who were doing the felling.
Yeah. This is
so
the thing
what
that we don't realise that
80 what, Ronnie? 80 what? You said a percentage, 80?
Yeah, it's a huge, like a huge percentage of farmed land is.
That's the highest percentage that we've. Because some go down to 13, don't they? The highest.
The kind of official figure for the contribution of animal farming to global heating is like something like 15%. But there's been other research. There was some research that's quoted in Cowspiracy that says that animal farming is 51% responsible.
Yeah, that's Ang, isn't it? Ang.
Yeah. And now the Climate Healers, their analysis is 87%, and it's based on several things. First of all, the actual emissions from animal farming are greater than what is the kind of traditional view. Secondly, that the animal farming has made a greater contribution historically, because what happens is that the climate crisis often kind of dated back to the Industrial Revolution, when fossil fuels were started to be burned in a big way. But what Climate Healer says, it goes back further than that. It goes back to the clearing of land for animal agriculture, because what you're doing is you're chopping down trees and other vegetation that draws the carbon dioxide out of the atmosphere. You see, so it kind of started the crisis dates back further than the Industrial Revolution. So that's another one. And then the third point is also the situation now with all this land that's being used for animal agriculture. It's mostly for grazing. The land that's used to grow crops for animal agriculture, that's we wouldn't need as much land. All the land that's used just for growing crops, if everyone adopted a vegan diet, we would need less of that to feed everyone. But in addition to that, you've got all the land that's used for pasture, for grazing, and that's a huge amount of land that if we didn't have animal farming, that land could be rewilded. It would mostly go back to forest. It would draw the greenhouse gases out of the atmosphere. You see,
and the farmers would say, "What has happened to my job?"
Sorry.
Well, the farmers go, "So what do I do?"
Well, there's basically, say if someone's an animal farmer, right, and they can no longer be, say we did kind of successfully move to a plant-based system, where the animal farming was brought to an end. There's really kind of two things that can be done with that land. Some of it can be used for growing crops, but I think the majority of it wouldn't be needed for producing food, because we wouldn't need it, and so that land could be allowed to return to nature, could be to go back to forest. mainly to forest, and so that would help tremendously in drawing the carbon dioxide out of the atmosphere. So that's what would happen. And so basically, if farmers are going to be helped to transition, they either need to be helped to transition to growing vegetable crops instead of animal farming, or into just allowing their land to, to go back to,
Yeah, but they're going to say you're trying to transition me out of a job, aren't they?
Well, lots of people have been transitioned out of jobs, haven't they? Like the miners, for instance, and like the kind of nature of work.
Yeah, well, just because it's happened to the miners doesn't mean the farmers are going to go, "Oh yeah, it happened to the
miners."
No,
the farmers aren't going to complete, but it depends. It depends what help they're given, doesn't it? It depends, like. If there's no more animal farming, they can't do animal farming.
Well, you're back then to animal rising because that's what they want to do.
I'm not opposed to farmers being helped.
Yeah, no, yeah.
To transition away from animal farming, I think that's great.
That's what animal rising new campaign's about, Ronnie.
That's not my problem with the animal rising thing. That isn't my problem with it at all. That's fine. But then I think that there are other things to kind of be said about that as well, which we've already done. But that's the thing, and so basically, what tends to happen is, first of all, these COP conferences are very focused on fossil fuels. How do we reduce? And we do need to kind of massively reduce the burning of fossil fuels. That is like kind of really, really important. But hardly anything is really done regarding animal farming, or indeed the fishing industry, because the fishing industry is we hear a lot about the harm done by aviation to in terms of driving the climate crisis, but in fact the fishing industry does more harm than aviation in terms of its contribution to global heating. And a lot of that is because it destroys vegetation in the sea. The trawling and all that destroys vegetation in the sea, which also draws down would draw down the carbon dioxide from the atmosphere, as well as the emissions that it produces. But they're saying in this article that they're kind of that there were some small positives, or there are some small positives from this latest COP meeting, the COP28, and that is that 2/3 of the food served at the event will be plant-based, right? Now I wonder what that means, because if someone has a meal, isn't a large, isn't 2/3 of that meal normally plant-based anyway? Well, if someone has a lump of meat and they have potatoes and vegetables, surely isn't that? Or are they meaning that what is that the meat part of it, that 2/3 of that is going to be substituted by something that's plant-based? Is that what that means? That's kind of...
Well, normally they actually print the menus, don't they? They probably do that this year somewhere.
Yeah. And I mean, the article talks about some, it gives some facts and figures regarding the climate, but once again, these tend to be the traditional ones. 1/3 of global greenhouse gas emissions can be attributed to food, whereas in fact groups like climate healers would argue that it's massively greater than that. And the other thing about meat and dairy production is not just the climate, but it's that it's these things are leading causes of deforestation, biodiversity loss, pandemic risk. Of course, the COVID pandemic, the majority view is that came from the wet markets, isn't it? Water pollution, dairy production alone emits more greenhouse gases than global aviation. And all this is kind of like, this is the kind of conventional view, whereas, as I said, there are groups that, like climate healers, argue that the effect of animal agriculture is far greater than that. But there's just really, and then it later goes on to say that really what a lot of countries are trying to do and what they're putting forward are ways of kind of continuing with animal agriculture, but putting in these measures to cut the emissions from farmed animals, and they're talking, like techno fixes, and they're talking about changing livestock feed, improving manure and fertilizer management, reducing farm animal mortality rates. But it says in the article all those things only really make a minor difference. And if you consider that a huge contribution of animal farming is actually the land it takes up, none of those things deal with that. None of those things deal with the amount of land that used for grazing and the amount of land that's used for growing crops to feed farmed animals. None of that is dealt with by just tinkering about and hear these things. That there's these muzzles.
Ronnie, that probably most of the politicians there are going to say, we can't talk about a plant-based world and we can't talk about veganism because we get voted out, right? And so
we're back to the same. What do we do about this? Year after year, like we're seeing these conferences that they're not doing nearly enough, far from enough about the burning of fossil fuels, right? Which is kind of their focus. They're not doing nearly enough about that, and they're hardly doing anything at all about animal farming and the fishing industry, which can be argued is more serious than the burning of fossil fuels. You see, so kind of as vegans, what do we do about that?
We're always back to the same issue.
We're back to the same thing because you see the burning of fossil fuels. You see, need to talk about that because my view is that the climate crisis has been caused by speciesism, has been caused by human supremacism, and the reason for that is obviously the consumption of animal products is because of speciesism. If we weren't kind of predominantly a human supremacist species, most people didn't have that view, then we wouldn't consume animal products. Everyone would be vegan, or like far more people would be vegan. So there'd be no consumption of animal products. And so the main cause it could be argued the main cause of the climate crisis would no longer exist. But even the burning of fossil fuels, you should go back, because as I said, this really dates to, in a big way, from the Industrial Revolution, right? Now, of course, people at the time, they didn't know that burning fossil fuels would lead to global heating. They didn't know that. They didn't have the science to know that. But what they would know is that the Industrial Revolution caused huge harm to other animals in other ways. The pollution it caused, the destruction of wildlife habitats in various ways that it caused, for instance. If we'd had a vegan run society at the time, would we have allowed that? I don't believe we would, because of the harm that caused to other animals. And so we wouldn't have the burning of fossil fuels that we've had if we'd had a vegan, certainly a vegan run society back in the day. So on both counts, in terms of the animal agriculture, and in terms of and the fishing industry, and also in terms of the burning of fossil fuels, it's down. It's down to speciesism. We have the climate crisis primarily because of speciesism. And so if you want to tackle the climate crisis, we've got to tackle speciesism. We've got to change how people think about other animals. We're going to have a world that's fair and just.
And so that's a cultural issue.
Yeah, cultural, because the main victims of the climate crisis are other animals. They're not humans. Obviously humans in poorer parts of the world are, the humans that are least to blame for the climate crisis are the ones that suffer most from it.
Okay. A related question for you, Ronnie.
Yeah.
It's the actual event. What do you make of the actual event? The idea of world leaders jetting to Dubai for this event.
Yeah, they're flying. There was one that flew. There was one from Ireland when he had something in Ireland, so he flew to Dubai, and then he had to fly back to Ireland, and then he had to fly back to Dubai.
Yeah, but he only had to fly back to Ireland just for a vote, a no confidence vote.
Why don't they do it? Why don't they do it over Zoom?
I don't know, but you know, he went to Dubai, then back to Ireland, then back to Dubai. You know,
I mean,
it creates a terrible question about current types of politicians. I mean, it's almost like they're like taking the piss, aren't they?
They do, but like, how do we change those politicians to sort of decent politicians? You know, if you create more vegans, you'll have more vegans that want to be politicians because of, you know, percentage of people like want to be politicians, don't they? So you'd have more vegan politicians and you'd have more vegans to vote for them. And so eventually these people could be voted into positions of like influence, couldn't they? And to me, that's it. To me, that's the only way of doing it. I can't, you know, like we've got to change, you know, there's all these terrible governments that like not doing hardly enough about this horrendous problem. As I say, it mainly impacts on other animals. With I mean, what was it, 3 billion? An estimate 3 billion other animals perished in the you know, the forest fires in Australia. Was it last year that were attributed to the climate crisis?
Well, one thing that links the two issues too is that Democracy Now! Today talked about the actual impact that war had on the climate. But also, I mean, you posted that picture maybe a couple of weeks ago now of the other animals killed by this carpet bombing.
Yeah.
In Gaza, right?
Absolutely, yeah. And you've got vegans all going, oh yeah, you know, these sets up pro-Israel vegans going, oh yeah, bomb them, bomb. Well, hang on a minute. Even if you don't care about the Palestinians, what about the other animals that live there that are being slaughtered by the Israeli bombing? You know, what about them? Don't you care about them, or has that gone out of your mind?
It's collateral damage, I think, is the word. So, look, we're way over our time in a way. So, do we want to wrap up, or do you got other things to say, or what?
No, I think we can kind of wrap up, and so basically on all these things, like it always does, it's kind of come back to the importance of vegan education, the importance of vegan outreach. You know, if we want, you know, truly want a plant-based system, if you truly want to tackle the climate crisis, then we've got to educate a lot more people to go vegan. The only people that educate other people to go vegan are us, our vegans ourselves, and so that we need a lot more vegans to become involved in vegan outreach. It's great that, you know, vegan outreach does go on, and it's great that people are doing it, but it tends to, as I've said many times, it tends to only happen mainly happen in the center of big cities. That's great. I'm all for that. But what about all the towns and suburbs of cities and small cities and villages where it doesn't happen?
Look at it that way. There's not much of it going on, is there?
Well, no. I mean, you know, in the county where I live, the majority of towns and the one city in the county where I live, there's no outreach. I think it happens out of like about 9 towns we've got. I think it only kind of happens in about 4. And you know, and there's loads of vegans in these places, you know, and so, you know, if someone's vegan, then they obviously, you know, someone's genuinely vegan, they, you know, they're that way for animal liberation.
They're all involved in direct action, bringing down your local animal abusers, Ronnie.
Well, no, I mean, if they were involved in that, at least it'd be something. But like, they're not involved. You know, so few vegans are involved in actively spreading the vegan message, and you know, so if those vegans want what they believe in, because they're vegan because they are opposed to the oppression and exploitation of other animals, that's why if someone is genuinely vegan. But how's that going to come about unless we educate loads of other people to go vegan? That's not going to happen, is it? You know, all right, you made your own contribution, or you're no longer contributing to that in your own life through your own choices. But what about all the other people that still are? And, you know, if we kind of really want widespread animal liberation, we've got to change them as well. And so it's like really important for all vegans to kind of do their best to be involved in outreach, you know. And so that's always my message, but I don't think it can be.
It certainly is. So, look, as promised, I'm going to go back to what Jerry said, because going right back to the beginning, this point was made a lot in the article that we started with, and a lot of vegans didn't kind of really kind of quite get it. So I think that the answer to that is to actually watch the movie before you dismiss it, because this is part and parcel of Kerry's kind of strategy.
Yeah, they came. Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's true they came together. I mean, sadly, it didn't do anything about the oppression of the miners, did it? You know, despite
no, I think we're supposed to look at it as a model. I think.
Well, the thing is, like, I've got nothing against. I've got nothing against vegans helping and supporting farmers to transition away from animal agriculture. I'm all for that, right? But I would imagine that is the fundamental reason why Animal Rising are doing this, because obviously that would be in line with the, you know, one of their main objectives. But it's kind of how this was pitched, really. That it wasn't, you know, as I said earlier, it was the reason has been, if it had been pitched in a way like explain, but you know, this is a, you know, we're doing this fundamentally to you know, for animal liberation. You know, we're doing this fundamentally to end or reduce animal agriculture. And so we feel that if we can help farmers in that way, that will kind of lead to that. If in pitched like that, then it would have been much more acceptable to the animal rights movement. That's the thing. I've not, you know, I've not got anything against vegans helping farmers to transition. No, not at all.
Do you think I mean, let's use the dread word, but do you think the clearly pro-intersectional position of a Animal Rising is a problem then for quite a lot of people in the movement, you think?
I don't think it's to do with being pro-intersectional. I think it's because it's perceived that in this particular case, it's perceived that they're helping the oppressors of other animals. That's how it's perceived by a lot of people in animal rights. And kind of if somebody from Animal Rising had said to me, look, this is what we're planning to do, I'd go, oh, bloody hell, you know, you're going to get so much shit for that. You know what I mean? I'd have known straight away, and I'd have thought, well, hang on, is there a way you can word this that kind of will kind of reduce that? You know what I mean? A way you can put it that's kind of like more acceptable. But I think there's also a thing about emphasis in terms of stuff that you can't you know, like you know, there was a thing where Animal Rising did sit-ins at restaurants where they, you know, restaurants obviously and they're mostly high class restaurants that were obviously serving a lot of meat, and they're in there trying to get publicity to promote plant-based future. But like they were kind of a lot of this, they weren't just going on about the animals, they were going about the cost of living crisis and stuff like that. And I thought, well, yeah, the cost of living crisis is a serious issue, but like you're kind of taking the focus away from where it should be. You know, that these animals aren't just suffering for a cost of living crisis, not just difficult for them to afford things, they're actually being carted off for slaughter at a fraction of their natural lifespan. And so I think sometimes it's important not to mix things up and important to concentrate on the kind of most serious issue. But that is slightly different to this, I'll accept. But it kind of sometimes, like, you know, the intersectional thing, I can understand it. I can understand that, you know, people getting like kind of upset when things are mixed up like that, because it takes the focus away from the main thing, you know, the massively more serious issue of the oppression of other animals.
Right. Okay. Well, I think we ought to wrap up. We're going to be back. Not quite sure next week, but we'll be back soon.
Well, I noticed there are some people saying that they want us back every week. I think that's probably crazy.
Well, perhaps we can line up a special with Kerry. Perhaps
we could do or there was another video we were thinking of doing a watch along to That's our last show was a watch along.
Yeah, there is that as well. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So we'll decide anyway, and
we will be back, providing that Ronnie.
Nobody's killed us in the meantime. Or we're still alive.
We're still alive. Yes, indeed. Now, okay. So I didn't tell you about this. I was gonna, but I didn't. I forgot. But I just want to finish with this.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Oh, bless her. Bless her. So because I know she wasn't well for a while, was she, Roger?
So,
yeah. Oh, bless her. Well, you did give her a lovely life, and that's really important. Really important.
Well, I'm not really capable of talking about it, so
no, that's.